Okay, I talk about impulse buys and how they're not a good thing to go to the store and buy something just because you see an animal, because many times those are the animals that get abandoned or turned into shelters or dumped or given away. This is an impulse buy we had 15 years ago again. We got them at the same time as the turtles. These are African, and they're very slippery, African clawed frogs. This is an albino. That is Yoder. This is Zebo. Whoa. And this little brown guy here, if I can get him out. Come on. They are just slick. I'm gonna hold on to them. Come on. Come on, baby. Well, I don't know if I can get him out to hold him with one hand because he's so slippery. This is Beaumont. And we were going to the pet store, actually the fish store, to get some food. We had just taken in 2 African dwarf frogs. My son was in 4th grade. He was 10 years old. And the same school that he was at had these dwarf frogs. And they were looking for homes for some of these dwarf frogs. So he took 2 of them. And we went to the store to get some food. And we saw these African clawed frogs in a tank. And I have to admit, and I wouldn't do it again, but it was an impulse buy. And he was like fascinated with these frogs. Well, he was 10, and the fascination with the frogs lasted about 2 weeks. And then, of course, he lost interest like children do. I'd say, 99% of children lose interest in the pet they get that they were so interested in. It would be very rare for a little kid to keep taking care of the pets. That's why the parent has to be the one who's going to take responsibility for the whole lifetime of the animal. So we got these frogs. He lost interest. So they've been here for 15 years, same amount as the turtles. They're 15 years old. And our little 2 dwarf frogs lived about 10 years, which was interesting because the pet store where I got these, I asked them about the African dwarf frogs, and the guy said, well, they live about 2 years. Well, our guys live over 10 years, and I think I know the reason why, and I'm going to show it to you. Well, I've just been cleaning their tank, and I just wanted to explain what we did. Now, I know these frogs can live to be 15 years, but ours are 15, they're almost 16, and they're still going strong. At the bottom of the tank, we didn't put any gravel, none. It's just the glass down there. These frogs have delicate skin. First of all, I didn't think they'd want some rough substrate. They come from many areas of Africa. They live in ponds and slow-moving rivers with mud bottoms. So one of the reasons was I didn't want to put them on something that was rough. Now when we got them home, I remember this 15 years ago, almost 16 years ago, we put them in the tank, and within the next few days they started pooping out massive amounts of gravel. And it was gravel from the fish store tank. Because when these frogs eat, they shove food in their mouth, or they suck the food into their mouth with a hydraulic action. And they were also ingesting lots of gravel, which I didn't think that's good. I even called the store and I said, these frogs are full of gravel. I said maybe they'd be better off in tanks without any bottom substrate. The other thing we put was this. And this is just a plastic, a softer type plastic, fake seaweed. So they can hide in there. You may notice there's no filtration of the tank. And that's because, once again, I'm trying to think of where they live in nature, and it would be in still, slow-moving water or water that doesn't move much at all. And I thought a filter system and the noise would be jarring to them and stress out their systems. Just like people, if you had a jackhammer going in the room all day long, wouldn't be good if you were used to quiet. So these frogs are used to quiet waters. So there's no filtration, and they do not get dirty. They kick around so much, and you can't do this with fish because it would be bad in a few days, but they kick around so much that the water does not smell, and I only clean it out maybe once a month. Okay, so let's get the frogs back in the tank. Okay, so here they are back in their tank. And you'll also notice there's no heater throughout this tank. And that's because the room temperature here is about 68 degrees all year round. And I just didn't put a heater in it. And they seem to be doing fine. I feed them only once a week. And in the months where I can dig the worms outside, I dig night crawlers and earthworms out of our compost pile, and they get a feeding of as much worms as they can eat in one feeding, and then I let them sit for a week and they don't eat. Now in the winter when I can't get worms, there he goes up, when I can't dig worms because the ground is frozen, then I feed them little bits of beef. But once again, I don't know if I can get a shot of you. There you are. Once again, once a week, sometimes even go a week and a half if they eat a big meal. So they're not overfed, and somehow they seem to be doing good. So this is what worked for me. It was just nothing I particularly knew. It was just thinking about how they might live. They're such gluttons. They gobble huge night crawlers that are longer than they are. And then I'm thinking that, well, they don't need to eat again, especially since the water is not really, really, really warm. They don't need to eat again because they have to digest all that food. So they got a lot of room to swim. And they're going to get fed some beef this afternoon. And that's the story of our African clawed frogs. They're not rescues. They were impulse buys. My son is 25 years old now, and he still has no interest in them. So make sure, if you're getting an animal and adopting an animal, please adopt. Make sure you understand a child is not going to stay interested, and they're not going to keep taking care of that animal. So the parent has to be the one. Okay, these frogs are hand-fed the bits of beef here. And they'll learn to come right up and take it out of your hand. All right, here, you want some? Come on. There you go. I do this because I don't want this meat laying in here and getting bad. I don't know if Beaumont wants any here. He already had a big piece. You can have another piece. And then I'll have to clean out the any bits that are left. I think he's full. Okay, you want some more? Here you go. Come on. There you go. Oh God, look at it, it's all over the place. I want to clean out those bits so they don't sit in there. But they all had a big chunk of it. There's a piece that went flying out. Get that. Where'd it go? I'm gonna try to get that piece out. Hang on. I would not recommend the shredded stuff because it gets all over the place. But I usually get a piece, and you know, I don't even buy beef at all because we don't really eat it at all. But I have to buy a little piece of it for the winter time and freeze it so I can cut off little bits for these guys. But that's the way they're fed. And now I got to go back and clean all that stuff out of there. It's much easier with the earthworms.